All right, guys, before we start this week's episode, I'd like to dedicate it to Chocobo Chica. She recently supported us on Patreon, and we greatly appreciate that. We will definitely send you that bumper sticker soon. Thank you for supporting us, and enjoy the episode, guys.
From Provo, Utah, this is the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast with your hosts, Joseph DeGolier and Caleb Schweiss. This is Ultima Final Fantasy. Welcome to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. I am Joe.
And I am Caleb.
And
I'm Caleb Craig.
He's here today.
Yeah, I returned at the request of my loyal fan.
Do you know who your loyal fan is?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I told him about that review.
Oh, the iTunes review?
Yeah.
So he's not even sure who it is, but
Well, we were planning on having you on anyway.
Yeah, well,
Just
let them pretend.
Okay. You got to talk into the mic a little bit more now.
Okay.
There you go. All right, so today, guys, this is our Final Fantasy XII review. Wow, it has been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2-month time in between games feels like an eternity between review episodes.
It does, yeah. I mean, we have episodes coming out in between, but they're not the real episodes. This is the real meat of the podcast.
We see that by our download rates of our review episodes versus our other episodes, if anything.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other good stuff, but this is what it's all about. So let's get into it. And this is one of the few chances that we've actually had to have Caleb Craig on. I mean, I know we've had him on before, but for an actual game review, this is only the third one, because we did 7, 8, and 12.
No, he was on 4
Yeah,
also.
I was on 4.
Oh, were you on 4?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's on a crap ton of them.
That's a third of them. That's not a crap ton.
Well, it is a crap ton for someone who's not a host.
Yeah, I guess. That's 7 or 8 episodes out of 60. But, this time we actually had the chance to play through it around the same time again.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that was kind of cool. We'll have a third perspective going into this.
Will we have a third perspective?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so.
All right. It's just as long as you have feelings and are a human being with thoughts of their own.
I like to think that I am.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
good. Well, what we always do with these review episodes, we just got to let you know that we're not doing any news today or any iTunes reviews. This is all about Final Fantasy XII and plugs. You can go to youtube.com and subscribe to us. youtube.com/Ultima Final Fantasy. You can find us on Twitter at UFF Podcast, facebook.com/Ultima Final Fantasy. You can support us on Patreon. $1 a month will get you the episodes as soon as we're done mixing them. Sometimes a day early, sometimes in the case of review episodes for this, let's say we have a second part, sometimes those are like a week and a day early.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can also find us live streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ultima Final Fantasy. And all that information can be found at ultimafinalfantasy.com, where you can also join our forums, ultimafinalfantasy.boards.net.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Schweiss, shall we talk about the development of Final Fantasy XII?
Yeah, I suppose we should start there.
All right. All right, so Final Fantasy XII began development in the year 2000 after Final Fantasy XI's announcement, and I believe 11 was announced with FF10 and FF9.
Yes.
But in the year 2000, that's when Final Fantasy XII began. All right, and it would begin the longest development time in history when it was finally released in 2006. Now, we've had games that have had longer development times released since then, but when this game was released and up to like 2008, when the Guinness Book of World Records video game special thing came out, it had the longest development time.
Right. I mean, I think Duke Nukem Forever was being developed at this time, but it doesn't really count.
Well, it hadn't
Until
been
it's
released,
yeah,
right?
until
It's not a product quite yet.
That one was sickening, though. That one was like over a decade, and it sucked.
I think
apparently.
it was like 12 years.
Yeah, so like, you know, at the time they were probably neck and neck, but 12 actually came out. So
I want to say StarCraft 2 is probably in there.
Oh
for
my
a
God,
long
yeah. Or Diablo 3.
Anything by Blizzard just
Yeah.
takes forever.
yeah, but they deliver. So anyways.
So the development was a tumultuous one as well as an expensive one for Square Enix. And it cost roughly $35 million US to create, which is about 12 million more than Final Fantasy X.
Okay.
And I believe Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy XI cost about the same, if I can remember
so,
when
yeah.
we did the review of FF11. The game was to be co-directed by Hiroyuki Ito, which we did a whole episode about.
It's true.
Remember that? So, you know, look up the spotlight for him, of FF6 and FF9 fame, and a man named Yasumi Matsuno, who had previously helmed and penned the very popular game Vagrant Story, as well as Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
What was that, Caleb?
Just
You just like okay.
yeah, I
all
just
right,
like
all right.
tactics.
So you're fucking up our whole show right now. I just okay. All right. It was Matsuno who had come up with the story of FF12, and Ito, along with battle designer Hiroshi Tomomatsu, they were well underway with the creation of the new FF battle system called the Active Dimension System, which of course. There's a similar development between this battle system, and how the original Final Fantasy battle system was created, where they were drawing inspiration from American football. So I thought that was interesting. And so this project was going to be a truly glorious combination of Square's creative teams. You know, all the guys behind the Evil East games were basically going to do this. And a big section of the teams were Final Fantasy veterans, like all the designers and stuff like that. And then there was some play online people. They were all in it to make this Final Fantasy XII. And Square Enix spared no expense. The art team was, in fact, shipped off to Turkey to draw up design ideas for the game, and much of the early development of FF12 was based upon custom creating the tools used to make the games, adding upon the same game engine as FF11 to create a type of MMO experience in a single-player game. In fact, I was reading a thing where they said that they had a plan at the time that every game after FF11 was going to have some type of online element. So they were going to try to implement with that with FF12, and I didn't see why they didn't implement that with FF12, but you know, obviously that plan didn't it didn't work out.
Right.
Right.
Were there a few? Are there any other things that didn't work out?
Oh, well, there were a
FF12?
few. There were a few. So here's a couple things about the early iterations of Final Fantasy XII. There was a planned two-player mode.
Oh.
How would you have liked to play FF12 with two players? So instead of having one person, maybe there would be one character on gambits, and then you'd have two separate people doing separate actions.
That would actually be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because then you would just have, I don't know, instead of gambits, you'd have another live person, and like instead of having like that one gambit that's always in front of the other thing that can be super important at times, you could have a nice little extra thing. Either that or like 2-3 person parties and doubling the HP of everything in the game. That'd be awesome.
It would be pretty cool.
Damn.
And they were also going to there were plans to allow for recruitments of non non-player characters, so recruitments of non-player characters to join in mob hunts, which would have been interesting. I'm not sure if you would do that through like the Sansi or whatever, like the clan type stuff. I'm not sure if you would do it through that.
Oh, the clan Centurio?
Yeah. Would you like hire out NPCs through the game to help you out? Probably,
yeah.
There were a few hunts where some chick joined you, the Vera.
Yeah, there were a few hunts where people joined you. That's true.
Yeah, it was probably something like that.
They were going to add a system where you went and got those people, I guess.
Nice.
There was a job system plan for FF12. And this is the biggest one I found today when I was looking up information on the behind the scenes of the game. Bosch von Ratzenberg was initially meant to be the main character of Final Fantasy XII.
If only.
Oh man,
Yeah,
That's probably why he has so much backstory
I'm sure
with his brother.
I'm sure we're gonna talk about that a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
But as I said before, FF12's development was a troubled one. Halfway through production, Hironobu Sakaguchi, series creator, quit Square Enix altogether, taking a huge chunk of the Final Fantasy XII development team with him to his new company, Mistwalker. Devastated by this blow to the project, co-director Yasumi Matsuno, the guy we were talking about earlier, the tactics and Vagrant Story guy, he refused to come to work for a month after the split. Rumors are that Matsuno, including this whole not coming to work thing, he was extremely temperamental after that. And in 2005, before the game was released, Matsuno stepped down from his position, claiming illness as the cause. Now, I was going through stuff on this behind the scenes stuff and all the people around the project, and I was kind of wondering, was he really sick, or was he just doing some kind of power move? But he has since stated that though he had in fact been sick, he felt he had disappointed the staff, shareholders, and fans who were looking forward to the game by stepping down. And so Matsuno would later follow Sakaguchi to Mistwalker to work on the game Terra Battle. So we all know who Matsuno really wanted to work with, I think. Now, how do you guys feel about Uematsu not showing up through this game?
I mean, the music, I felt like could have been better if he would have been there.
Yeah, it didn't really stand out at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really any of it that was super annoying or bad, but
well,
at least I didn't think. But I mean, there wasn't one that's like super good either. Except for the battle themes were cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about music a little bit later. But the reason why there is no Uematsu in Final Fantasy XII is that he left Square Enix in 2004 to pursue his own stuff. I guess he didn't want to work for Square Enix anymore. He wanted to be a freelance composer.
Right.
And so Uematsu only had 2 tracks that appeared in FF12, one being the main Final Fantasy theme that we all know, and then the ending song, which I thought was interesting because it's called Kiss Me Goodbye. So like, I don't know, Uematsu saying kiss me goodbye to the company, I think.
Yeah. Well, the song kind of sucked, so.
Yeah, it did.
There's worse.
We're going to get so much hate just for that little comment. We're going to be like, man, it was my favorite song of all time.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, whatever. So, Hitoshi Sakimoto was the primary replacement for Uematsu, with a handful of tracks created by Square Enix composers Hayato Matsuo and Masaharu Iwata. These Japanese names are killing me. Yeah. But Sakimoto especially, he was one who had worked previously on other Evil East games before that. And to finish up the game, Matsuno, who was the co-director who stepped down because he was sick, was hurriedly replaced by Hiroshi Minagawa to salvage the game. Later, that same person would be one of the staff members sent to save another troubled FF game, Final Fantasy XIV. So I guess this is the fix-it guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just he takes games that are going to die and he resurrects them, as far as I can tell with his employment history.
All right.
So within this environment of ever-changing staff members, there were some ever-changing aspects of the game that were also tacked on during all this. The planned two-player mode and NPC recruitment were dropped from FF12 due to hardware limitations and the fact that trying to implement those systems, despite the hardware limitations, would cause too many delays for a game that was being delayed so much already.
Right.
The job system was dropped as Square Enix decided that such a complex system would, and I quote, confuse the players as well as make the game's development even longer. So once again, they were avoiding delays, and obviously it didn't work because the game took forever anyway. So, we could have had a job system, but now there is some hope as far as the job system is concerned. The job system would later be put back in a way, not quite the way they were going to implement it originally, but in a kind of different sort of way, with the release of a game called Final Fantasy XII International Zodiac Job System about a year after Final Fantasy XII was released.
Okay.
Which I believe is only available in Japan.
Which is weird because it's called International.
Yeah, that is weird. That is so weird. I didn't even think. I honestly didn't even think about that, Caleb.
Really?
Yeah, really.
It's bugged me ever since I heard about it.
Well,
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
that's so strange because we didn't. Oh my god. The things I miss when I'm doing these write-ups, just the things I miss. All right.
The more you know.
And lastly, Bosch was deemed too old and too tough of a character for the target demographic of the game. So they had this story with Bosch as the lead character, and they looked at the demographics of the games, and they decided it wasn't right for the demographic.
Dude's like 30.
So, in order to make up for this, the characters Vaughn and Penelo were created. And Vaughn even started out as kind of a tough guy, but he ended up, of course, becoming who Vaughn is, which is kind of like an outgoing, spunky kid. So, how do you guys feel about that?
Bosch for the win. He would have been an awesome character. The story would start in the same spot.
There was a moment at the end when he was like holding his brother, and I was like, why don't we have more focus on this guy?
Yeah, the story would probably be tighter and probably better if it was focused on.
Would be great.
We don't want to have the game buried in a grave just yet, guys. This is the beginning of the review. All right. In 2005, a playable demo of FF12 was released with the game Dragon Quest VIII, and in March of 2006, the full game followed in Japan. Did you ever play the demo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I bought Dragon Quest VIII and got a copy of the demo disc.
Did you play the demo after you'd already played FF12?
No, I played it before. I bought it.
Okay.
I bought the Dragon Quest VIII like right when it came out, and so I played the demo disc with it.
How does it differ? I've never played the demo.
It's just the beginning part, I think.
Yeah,
I remember fighting
There's like a boss that you get to fight, and that's it, I think.
I don't know if there was a boss. I know there was the T-Rex guy. I tried to fight him, but he killed me.
Oh, yeah.
And basically it just starts
So it's just the Rabbinaster stuff right at the beginning?
it's just right in that area.
Do you get that opening cutscene or anything, or does it just
I don't remember the cutscene.
Okay.
I just played, it was already started game, and then I died.
All right. So
all right, well.
The full game in 2006, it was released in Japan. And in October of 2006, North America received the game, and in February of 2007, it was finally released in Europe and Australia. So despite all these setbacks in the development, Final Fantasy XII was a large commercial success, selling over 5 million copies and becoming the fourth biggest PS2 game of 2006. It was also a mega hit critically, believe it or not, winning multiple Game of the Year awards from, I believe, from Edge, Famitsu, and a few other publications. Multiple Game of the Year awards, and receiving top scores by many critics. And I put these scores in front of us so that we could see. OneUp.com gave it an A. Edge, of course, gave it 9 out of 10. There's a lot of 9 out of 10s here. Eurogamer gave it 10 out of 10. Famitsu gave it its perfect score, 40 out of 40.
Right.
Game Informer, 9.25 out of 10. I believe, actually, Game Informer was 9.5 out of 10. I thought I saw that before, so I'm not sure if that source is correct. But High scores all around.
Yeah,
right?
and of course, the aggregate, the one that everyone cares about, Metacritic gave it a 92, which ties it with many other Final Fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Edge Awards, Best Game, Famitsu's Award, Game of the Year, Japan Game Awards.
Grand Award.
The Grand Award, Award for Excellence, GameSpot Awards, Best PS2 Game, and IGN Awards, 2006 Best PS2 Game.
Huh.
Very loved critically.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yet a few years later, and FF12, I would say, for the FF fan base, is nearly forgotten. Often seen as a low point in the series, many fans of the Final Fantasy series see 12 as a disappointment. In one of the reviews for the game, GameSpot criticized it for having the weakest soundtrack in the series, and many a YouTube reviewer I've seen have expressed disinterest in the weak characters of Vaughn and Pinello, saying that they had nothing to contribute to the story. Series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi said he couldn't play any more than the first 20 minutes, and executive producer Akitoshi Kawazu stated that although he was happy with the perfect Famitsu score or 40 of 40 for the game, he felt that it was far from perfect and that the storyline did not meet his expectations. And so basically, the legacy of FF12 is a conflicting one indeed. I mean, such critical praise and such mass sales when it was released. And yet, when you look around like Final Fantasy message boards or anything like that, there's gonna be a few defenders of Final Fantasy 12, but I'd say that it's pretty beaten down by longtime fans of the series.
Yeah, not quite as much as the next one, but
Not quite as much as 13.
thankfully, I'll be doing the 13 one, I think, so I'll have my opinion piece at the end.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, but definitely a conflicted game. I mean, there's so many people leaving the game. There's such a delay, and
Just took forever. And there
did,
were so
yeah.
many problems in development. It's
although
insane.
I will give it credit. I mean, when compared to Final Fantasy IX, it wipes it when it comes to like the initial sales and stuff. Although 9 had,
No, I think 9 was about 5 million also.
yeah, but I mean, it was really low compared to the other ones on that system.
Yeah,
But
you're
9
right.
also came out when PS2 was out. So, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons for 9 not selling as well. So I think 12 did well in that regard. But yeah, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I just haven't played 12.
Well, no, 10 at the time had like 8 million copies sold. 11, of course, became, I don't know what its initial sales figures were.
Yeah.
But it became the highest grossing Final Fantasy game. So 12 is the disappointment on the PS2.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Still a great selling game, though. It's hard. It's unfair to compare. Compare it like that, I think.
I guess. I don't know. It's still. I did 9. Was 9 around the same?
Yeah, it was around 5, I think. 5 or 6.
All right.
No, it was less than 6. I remember that.
Man, that seems low when I'm looking at like Grand Theft Auto 5 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But whatever.
It's a Japanese RPG. It's not going to be 100 million copies sold or anything.
Yeah. If only.
Yeah.
If only.
All right. Well, let's talk about the story.
Okay. All right. So Final Fantasy 12 story.
The story. What story? No, I'm kidding. There actually is quite a story in this game.
Yeah, I mean
To say that there is no story is It's incorrect.
Yeah, I would say
Considering it has 5 hours of cutscenes.
Yeah, I would say it probably has more story than 1 through 5, 8, and maybe close to 9.
9 had a lot of cutscenes.
Yeah, but I don't know.
When I think like story amount in a game, I think about how much time
Is devoted to
is
it.
devoted to story
I don't think that.
in hours.
They can give you all sorts of eye candy. Are you really going to say that the
But
videos in 2...
12 is a huge game.
Yes, 12 is huge, and I think that's why it feels like there's not much story, or one of the reasons is because it's a long game. It takes a while to get through all the story, even if it's not necessarily laden with story. So,
We start with that prologue, right?
right, there's a little prologue video.
A little?
Well, not really little. Starts out...
There's a movie at the beginning.
It's pretty sweet, but it starts out with a giant battle, and there's the explosion and then tons of dead bodies, and that of course is the Nabudis. That's the town that got blown up by
The city.
Yeah, the whole city that got blown up by a Nethicite, the mega nuke weapon of the game. And it starts out there and leads into a bunch of political stuff. So it starts out where
Arcadia they're fighting against
Rosaria.
Rosaria.
Rosaria, and then Rabanastre is in the middle of Rosaria. So Arcadia is just going to basically, they just storm through and just take over because it's on the way, kind of a thing. And so the game starts out with, I believe, Rabanastre, one of the kingdoms, Rosaria, is holding off the Arcadian army, right? And they're getting their asses kicked. And their leader, the Prince Rassler or whatever, he gets killed in the battle. And then Bosch tries to save him. This is the introduction of the awesome character Bosch. And he ends up dying. They have a funeral for him. And then there's another resistance insurgents that pops up with Bosch and the first main character of the game, Rex, who gets wrecked, of course.
Rex gets wrecked.
Right, and the player is led to believe that Bosch kills him because a guy that looks just like Bosch walks up to him and stabs him in the gut.
Spoiler.
Yeah, and he dies, essentially. I mean, he's still alive, but that's the last thing he sees. He sees his king murdered, and he sees Bosch, and then Bosch stabs him, so... And that's basically what sets forth the events of the story.
I felt like it was well animated, but it was long-winded.
Yeah,
that opening cutscene.
I don't know if it was really long-winded. I just feel like it was. I didn't have that much backing it, kind of a thing. Like a good cutscene to me is something that I can understand what's going on, and with that one.
It's a lot of information being thrown at you at once.
Yeah, and you don't really, really process.
Like if you watch it, it's just like it's trying to get so much
across
done. Yeah.
They wanted to not be like Advent Children in that way. It's like a lot of stuff getting done as opposed to like nothing over hours. Anyway, so yeah, it starts out there, and then you take control of Vaughn, the character that did not exist until the end, when they decided to throw somebody young in so that the audience would be more cool with him. Yeah, and essentially he's just a little thief dude. He runs around the town. He doesn't have a family. He's an orphan. Just a fairly common theme in the series. You know, like bastards and orphans and all this stuff, and no one knowing their families. He basically, he thrives off of stealing money from people and
doing little jobs for Dallin.
Yeah, little jobs for Magello and does stuff with Dallin too. So I mean, basically, you jump into that and take control of him, and he's got his sidekick Pinello, who's trying to be more of a do-gooder and change Vaughn and his thief ways. And so that's where where he starts to actually do jobs a little more, where he's actually earning the money. So first thing, I guess this is kind of story related. They set out to go do, what the hell is it? Like, oh man, I think it's the rogue tomato when he comes back with he's given a job to go kill a rogue tomato, which is like terrorizing the caravan.
Yeah.
And he comes back with these little flowers, or like Albana lilies or something like that, is what they're called.
Yeah.
And apparently they were like his brother's favorite, and some events happen. They get trampled. He hates the Empire. That kind of gives us a feel of his disdain towards the invaders from, Arcades, the Arcadian Empire that's now controlling the city. Essentially, there are guards everywhere, and they're real dicks about letting people in and all sorts of stuff like that.
I did remember reading that in order to kind of like show how strict the Arcadians were, how tyrannical they were, that's why there's a license system almost, is just you have to have a license for everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh,
that was a way to implement that, I guess.
Could you imagine how thick their wallets must be?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
They've just got the giant marble tablet on there.
Yes.
Etch it in for approval. So, basically, you come back from there, and then Vaughn goes and talks to this old dude who tells him about a certain treasure in the
palace.
In the palace area of, what is it, Rabanastre? Yeah. And you go down in there, and this is where we meet the other two of the other characters in the story, Fran and Balthier. And they're also trying to steal shit because they're thieves, and they're kind of there as a, I don't know, at the same time they're like trying to thwart an attack or something like that. You remember that, where they come in and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose and the Ifrit is just launching missiles down at people. And there's like all this confusion, and they're going to use that confusion to go loot. And then, of course, Vaughn comes across a awesome looking treasure, which turns out to be Nethicite, and Balthier wants it. But with all the shit breaking out, they have to escape, so they go down in the waterway, the Garamsith waterway underneath.
And then you take 12 hours in the waterway, and then you kill a thing.
Yeah, and then, of course, this is where we meet up with Ash, the...
Hot Ash.
Yeah, hot piece of ash. But, yeah, she's down there with a group of loyal followers, I guess, for the resistance movement. This is for... I mean, obviously, she's Rassler's bride, so she's trying to regain power,
right,
sort of a thing, and they're just kind of attacking and messing around.
Everybody thinks
waterway.
she's dead. Everybody was told that they committed suicide.
Right.
That she
Marquise or Marquise, however you want to call it,
Marquis
Andor, basically announced the death of her and Captain Bosch. Mm-hmm. Just kind of a lie, a little political move anyway. But you meet up with her down in there, and then you fight some shit, and then you get out, and I think that's when you go to the isn't that when you go to the Sand Sea after that?
Perhaps.
No, you go back to Rabanastre, and then
it's a long game. It's been a long time.
And then I think you get caught.
Yeah, I just know at one point you get caught, and then you find Captain Bosch.
Right. The rest of the in-between stuff's not too important. But yeah, you do get captured by the Empire, and then you get thrown into the Nalbina dungeon, and you fight some really ugly pig-looking dudes. The
Sikh?
The Sikh guys, and you escape that, and then you jump into, you run into Bosch, who's imprisoned, he's famished, dying, and then...
and they were going to leave him there.
Yeah, they were going to leave him. They didn't care. And then somebody got alerted to their presence, so they opened the lever, released the lever, and just rode his little cage down to the bottom. Mm-hmm. And they armed Bosch. There's a big cut scene where Bosch basically tells Vaughn, he figures out that Vaughn was Rex's brother, and he tries to convince Vaughn that he didn't kill, Rex and his king. Because Vaughn's obviously not very happy about the Kingslayer that he's in a party with. Of course, Balthier doesn't care, wants to use Bosch to get out of there and to take the Nethicite that Balthier was promised, or he wants from Vaughn. And so they escape the dungeon area, and of course you fight the Mimic Queen down there. Kind of a pain in the ass boss. I don't know, it was okay. And then...
I don't know if I had trouble on her.
I had trouble the first time I played the game.
Did you?
yeah, I didn't.
I had trouble with everything the first time I played this game, and I had some trouble later on with this game. Of course. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you escape there. You go back to to
Rabanastre and spend about 9/10 of the game in Rabanastre. I swear to God.
Yeah. Well, it is your capital city. I mean, do you remember how long we stayed in Bastok? About the same.
Yes, that's true. But Bastok was a little different of a situation, I'd say, in Final Fantasy XI.
Bastok's way more annoying.
Yeah, probably.
Because you don't have the Moogle dudes to just port you. So anyway, you go back there and then you find out that Penelo has been kidnapped. And they think that Penelo is like I don't know, she's banging Balthier, I guess. So
what?
Yeah, do you not
remember this, no.
That's why that's why they agree to go to Bujurba, is because he's in the Lusu mines. That Bagamnon guy, he kidnapped Penelo thinking that she was going at it with Balthier. It was like some mistress. So that Balthier would be lured, and Balthier knew it was going to be a trap, but he had to go. Okay. And Bosch needed to go there anyway, so everyone jumps in the airship, and you guys go over to Bujurba. And this is where you meet up with Larsa Solidor, and at the time you don't realize he's, Vane Solidor. The Solidor family is a political power in the what the hell are they? The Empire, the evil dudes.
It's the royal family of Arcades.
Yeah, they're the royal family of Arcades. They're the rulers, and this little kid who's overhears a conversation is the brother of Vane Solidor, who is basically running Rabanastre. He's in charge of keeping them loyal.
He's in charge of Rabanastre right now?
Yeah.
Because I know later he kills his father, who's, I believe, the king.
Yeah, and then he becomes king.
Yeah, he kills his father. And so, I mean...
Sorry to skip ahead.
You go to Bujurba, you meet up with him. He's like, oh, yeah, let's go into the mines. I have to look in there, too, for something. You go in, you find what Larsa's looking for, which is nethicite. He wanted to kind of check and see if that's where they were mining it, which is like a magic shard sort of thing. It's like a crystal, essentially, that they're...
Yeah, they kind of brought the crystals back in FF12 as nethicite.
Right.
And then there's...
Yeah, and the magicite. And there's obviously the save crystals, but,
And there's the great crystal, but it's all nethicite stuff.
Yeah, it's not quite as overbearing as before, but...
The fire, the wind, the water.
Yeah, there's not that, thankfully. I've had enough of that.
You have? Really?
Yes, I've had enough of that. It's like 4 games in a row, just crystal farming.
5 games in a row.
Whatever. But so you go in, you find the guys that captured Penelo, and please run away from them. By the way, they're sick.
I ran away. You told me to, and I was like, "Don't have to ask me twice. I'll just go."
So you get out of there, and then let's see. I think that's when you get.
You gotta. Does Bosch meet up with? I want to see Vossler.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's why
in the city, right?
That's why Bosch came here.
They're in the underground
after you get out of the Lucy mines, and then
I don't think it's Rabanastre. No, I think they're in Bujurba.
Bujurba, yeah.
They met
it's
up
the
again,
Lucy mines,
but they met up in Rabanastre in the undercity.
Maybe when they went back.
Oh wait, you're right.
Yeah, because the old guy tells Vaughn to bring Bosch the sword for when he joins your party.
And Vaughn quickly changes his mind. He believes Bosch's story. He believes Bosch's story. Well, it's not instantly, but it's a dungeon, a dungeon of game time.
He talks to him like twice.
Well, Bosch is like, no, I have a secret twin brother who looks exactly like me.
Yeah, and of course,
does evil deeds, and is like, no, and then he believes him right after they get out of the Lucy mines.
Right, and then they of course find out that the kid they've been traveling with is brother to the Empire's family,
the brother to Vane Solidor.
Yes, Vane Solidor,
and they're weirdly cool with it.
So, how do they get to the tomb of Wraithrall?
They walked through the Sand Sea, and this is after.
But why?
Well, there's an area, I don't really get it. It's like a certain sort of anti-airship thing, so they can't fly.
Okay.
Over this area, so they had to walk, which is common in the Final Fantasy XII.
Finding an excuse as to why you can't fly.
Right. And Yeah, this is after Bosch, of course, meets up with the Resistance. They kind of accept him, don't really trust him. And then we gotta mention this. When you were in Bujurba,
Yes.
which I'm now positive is where you meet up with the Resistance, you run around screaming, no, this is not it. Damn it. You meet up with that...
It was right after the Lucy Mines that you do the...
Captain Bosch part.
Yeah,
we
Captain
talked
Bosch
about I'm
part.
Captain Bosch.
Yeah,
And
we
then,
didn't talk
and then you
about
go
that.
fight the geese on the
Stupid.
ship.
Yeah, you get basically taken and then turned over later to Judge Geese. But I don't know, did we skip that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, that was hellish. That airship when you get captured by Geese. And then Geese was a really brutal boss fight the first time I played, but he was okay this time.
I did fine on Geese, but that was because you guys told me to level up
Yeah.
in that ship.
Yeah, I think
And
he
so
died.
I leveled up plenty.
Yeah, I think he died a couple times on the way, though. I remember the judge battle before that in that room.
No, there was a battle before. It was right
It
wasn't
before you get
judges.
Ash.
They were other big soldiers right beforehand. And
There were
killed
judges
me.
as well, though.
They weren't like legit judges. They
They
were
weren't.
minor.
They weren't one of
They're
like
not.
the.
They're not judges.
They're not
where-
one of the high judges, but
Right.
they're still judges.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
they
what
were-
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They were something judges then.
Right. So
I thought
mean,
they were like soldiers.
you get off the ship, and then of course Geese blows the ship up because he's an idiot. They're trying to test the power of the nethicite that they stole from you, which is the one that you stole from the freaking thing in Rabanastre, the treasure trove under the city. And then of course you grab the nethicite from the air after it explodes and kills everybody on the ship, and you take it back, and then you go visit the weird Indian Native American people, the Yahara Gareth people, and then they tell you that, oh yeah, the nethicite sucks. You're going to have to go to Tomb of Wraithwall, which is where the Dynast King left another treasure, which is where you go to
The Dawn Shard.
Right, the Dawn Shard, which is your next target. And of course, you have to walk through the Sand Sea, which is kind of a lot of walking. I don't know. The Sand Sea is not that long if you know where you're going.
If you know where you're going, that's it.
Yeah.
If you know where you're going, the Sand Sea is not very long.
I think it's a really cool looking
The
area.
first time I played this game, I think I spent most of the game in the Sand Sea. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was... I remember putting on a Nirvana album and just having it on loop. I kept going through that area. It was sick.
Did you level up a lot?
I did. That's
Was
where
the game easier after that, or?
up to a point, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not this time around. This time around, I was really stupid.
Yeah.
Talk about that with the gameplay, though, I think.
Oh, we will.
Yeah. So was Ash wanted to get the Dawn Shard because she wanted to use it against Arcadia?
Yeah, she wanted to use it against the Empire to destroy them. 'cause
So
she
it's like
hated them.
the ring.
Yeah, sort of. It's
the
like
ring of
the
power.
quest for the ring. And of course she wants revenge because, her husband was killed.
Right.
And
She starts seeing like visions of him.
right, she starts seeing him. And I think only one of the times it was actually him.
Do you remember the wall in the Tomb of Wraithwall?
Yeah.
The demon wall.
Yeah, the demon wall.
Which
Yeah.
one? The optional demon wall, or like the one that you have?
The
to
one
fight?
you have to fight.
It was super easy.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with him.
You didn't have a problem. I died once.
I tried to fight that optional one like 6 times though.
He was rough.
I remember the first time I played FF12, that guy was really difficult.
I remember that too. I remember
Despite the Sand Sea.
Right. And I don't know, the demon wall is traditionally a pain in the ass. In 6, that guy was disgusting in 6. Like just relentless.
I think in 7, in comparison to the other bosses, he's also pretty rough.
Yeah, in 7 he was rough too. In the what was it? Temple of the Ancients? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that guy was
There's a demon wall in 4 as well. And that
Yeah.
guy was
The 4 one was sick as fuck too. Yeah. He's always brutal. I remember the 4 when he was fast, man. I had he just crushed me. Just one hit, dead. One hit, dead, and then game over. Jesus. So, yeah. So Demon Wall comes back with a vengeance in 12. And of course, we skipped over this a little bit, but Vossler is another member of the Resistance, so to speak. And he was kind of traveling with you in the Sand Sea. And, he comes along with you. He's part of the party. And then after you get out, there's a fleet of enemies waiting for you, and you kind of get captured again. And Vossler apparently betrays you. And
Apparently,
Just
yeah.
apparently.
This is where Geese blows the ship up. That's right, because he takes this thing from you.
Okay, so we got a little mixed up, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
God damn it. Mixed up on the timeline. So yeah, they destroy, the airship gets destroyed because Vossler betrays you. You go meet the people.
They still have the Dawn Shard, though, don't they? Or
Yeah, they get it back after it blows up.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like, remember, there's the big cutscene where it explodes, and then they go fly up to it, and they pick it up. And then
Where did they have to go? I remember we had to go somewhere.
we had to go to Yahara here.
had to
This
get
is
to
where
the
you went to
Yahara.
Yahara.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I freaking get mixed up in the beginning. It's not
a lot
very,
of stuff.
It's not very eventful. Plus, honestly, in my defense, it was seriously like 120 game hours ago. It's been a while. So yeah, you go to the Osman Plane, and this is one of not the Osman Plane, the first plane, Giza Plains, which is
Right,
an
you got to
area
go
pass
through the
through.
rains
Right.
in the Giza Plains for the first time.
Right, which is a rough area. It's kind of a hard transition from where you were before to the Giza Plains, which I honestly really like the weather patterns in the game. I think that's a really cool element.
I think it's a cool element until you have to go get a hunt and you have to wait for it to change, and then
And
I'm
then it
like,
never does.
Then I'm like, fuck this element of the game. That's
Yeah.
what I think. Yeah,
You can manipulate the weather for most places, but not that one.
not
That
the
one has to be a
rains. You
time.
have to wait an hour in between, and then
It's 2 hours of dry, 1 hour of rain.
Yeah, it's 2 hours of dry, 1 hour of rain.
So, I
you
mean,
have
it's
to
not
wait
too bad if you
2
got a lot
hours.
of stuff to do, but I left that one gill snapper dude or whatever he is forever because it was always dry.
You never got it.
Yeah, I never got it wet. I was horrible, but
Not very skilled.
no, not very skilled
Your timing
at all.
was off.
Yeah, I'm just like too rough, I guess. But so I thought that was a cool element, where they have weather patterns. This area is like hour on or hour rain on, 2 hours off kind of a thing. And then you get into the Osman Plane, which is also a sick area. I felt like it was a huge jump in there, and I know you did too. You were having a hell of a time fighting stuff.
Yeah, I was. And it was around this time that Caleb Craig told me that I should have been buying better equipment, I believe.
Yeah, this was the beginning of it.
Yeah,
In which, Joe went and leveled up a little in the Giza area,
I did.
which is fine. So we hit that up, and the
went past
Yahara
there.
guys, they tell you that the Nethicite is old and used up, and that you need to go speak to... Is this where you went to? Mount Baromases? I think that's where you were supposed to go.
It was after the Yahara guys, yeah.
Yeah, you're supposed to go meet up with the Grand Kiltius because he's more knowledgeable on it than they are, and he might have more information on another treasure of the Dynast King, which of course is someone in Ash's family line a while ago that conquered a shitload of stuff because of Nethicite. So you go through the Golomor jungle from here.
Yeah.
Also a rough area with some enemies.
I kind of, that's really where I started going. I took Caleb's advice. I stopped buying spells, and I started buying equipment
This is
in the jungle.
This is one that I was really confused by. And then while Caleb was over one day, he lived here at the time. Caleb was hanging out with me, and I was like, what's going on? Like, I don't understand how Joe's sucking so bad at this. So I went through and I looked at my YouTube video on the area I was in or where I was at when I was there. And I was like 4 hours faster, and my guys were more leveled up, and I was doing more damage. And I was like, what the fuck?
And all of his characters were evenly leveled, where Joe was only leveling up one party.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I didn't understand it. I could not wrap my head around what was happening.
I was simply playing the game wrong, and
I guess.
you can do that.
I guess you
12.
do.
It's so open that you can fuck yourself over. It's
Yeah, it doesn't quite hold your hand like 10, so there's that.
Yet at the same time, it does though. It's such a weird. We'll talk about that in gameplay.
Yeah.
Talk about that next week.
So yeah, this is about the time where Joe started realizing I'm not playing this right, and we started playing it right. So then you finally meet up with the amazing village of bunny women. Okay, the Ureet village.
Get to the Playboy Mansion.
Yes. Oh yes. And
No Hugh Hefner though.
no Hugh.
No men.
Hugh's not in.
It's only you.
Yeah.
You and them.
Yes.
Nice.
And so you find out that
Very tanned, very tall. beautiful women.
Yeah, just kind of scratching behind their ears after you finish up, and
With
it's
their
all good.
legs just...
Yeah,
And only three
so
of them
weird.
have different hairstyles.
True.
They all have different accents. I would also like to add...
Yeah, they're kind of crappy. I don't know why they didn't do better with the voice acting for that. I mean, Fran, I can understand because she's not there.
The localization is very interesting on this game. The guy who localized it, I can't remember his name. He had... This is kind of unique for FF12, for Final Fantasy, in that he had a bunch of different accents, and it was all based upon where they came from in the game. Like, it was... He legitimately, like, planned the accents based upon... the characters' backstories.
Oh, cool.
So I thought that was interesting. However, all the bony women do have slightly different accents.
Yeah.
They're all just going for something that sounds foreign. And
Yeah, pretty much.
I was noticing, like, Fran does not talk like her sister.
Well, Fran's also been out of the village for a very long time, so that you can't really compare.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, logic.
Sure. It's not logic. It's just that
It is too. When
the
you live
different
in a-
voice actors obviously did not have the same.
Well, I'm sure that's
goal
part
in
of it
mind.
too. I'm not like defending it. I'm just saying.
You are defending.
No, I'm saying it makes sense for Fran not being there forever to sound different. When you move to a place, you start sounding like those people.
It's true.
People go on missions in Great Britain, they have British accents. That's what happens. You just start talking like them. But the shittiness of it is still real. And, you find out that one of Fran's sisters is missing. The youngest sister, Mirren, or whatever. And you have to go through... You have to go through the... you got to go back into the Osman Plane, and then you jump down into another mine area. I think it is the hen, yeah.
Yeah, oh my god, the switches.
Yeah, the switches are easy,
wonderful
dude.
switches.
There's like 2.
No. The switches, though, at this point in the game, will kill you.
Oh, yeah, because they drop down enemies.
Yes! They're all fucking traps.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
The 40
All these, you go in, you have to do these switches to get to certain sections of the mines. It'll like open doors on one side and then close gates on the other side.
Right.
With these switches, and every time you do it, like 12 flan drop down, and
yeah.
of course you're under leveled, and it's sick.
Yeah, it was rough even for me. I think I was able to kill him, but it was hard. But it gets worse, though. The further in areas of the hen mines, like level 68, Abbey Steels drop down, and there's like 15 of them, dude.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with that at this point.
No, you don't, thank God. But you go, and she's being possessed by Nethicide, which is really weird. She's got like this strange glowing
she wasn't
entity.
possessed by Nethicide. She was being possessed by the abnormal amount of mist.
And then
Because the bunny women are more attuned to mist, which is like the source of
No,
magic.
she had a piece of Nethicide in her. She was holding on to it when it dropped. The dude behind her disappeared. She dropped it and shattered. It shattered.
Vanna was
Yeah,
behind
but I
her.
thought
Yeah.
they said there was something about the mist, too.
The mist was really strong in the area, but it wasn't like to the point where people are freaking out.
Yeah, not like Fran freaking out, which we forgot to talk about.
Yeah.
Fran's not as attuned to the mist as the other ones because she's been away from their home for a while.
Right, so that means they should be more used to it because it's there. Anyway, I think it's because there was a stone. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And so you fight this dude, Tiamat, who's, I think, the first guy I lost to, other than when I was trying to cheat and level grind early on.
Wasn't Tiamat the guy I did just fine against and you were mad about it?
No, you didn't do just fine. You almost died, but you did
Almost.
make it. But then there's the Elder Worm.
Fuck the Elder Worm.
Which took you forever and ever and ever, which I didn't die on him. I was fine with him. You don't actually have to fight this guy, though. You can actually take a very long and very dangerous path through the Feywood and avoid him. He's an optional boss.
Oh, well,
But
that's
it's
nice.
not a good idea to go that way, because that way is it's pure evil.
Is it?
Yes, it's like level 40 area, and you're level
Jeez.
20.
Yeah,
So-
I'd rather just fight the Elder Worm.
Oh, I would too. And then, of course, you finally get to Mount Baromasace, where you're trying to speak with the Grand Kiltius to, learn a little bit more about, the treasures that you're seeking so that you can destroy the world with your nuke.
Is this when, is there a cutaway somewhere around here where Vane kills his father? Is that around here or is that later on?
It's when you come back. So when you get to Mount Baromaces, you talk to the Grand Kiltius. He basically says, hey, there's a treasure in an area south of here. It's still Shrine of Miriam. And go in there and get it, So you go out, you go in, you kill Mateus, the water/ice entity, summon in the game. And you come back, and you notice there's like smoke on the horizon.
Right.
And fire in the sky. And, you...
That's smoke on the water.
Yeah, close
That's
enough.
Smoke on the horizon.
I know what it is. But anyway, you see it, and then you kind of head back to Mount
Not that there's
Baromaces.
smoke on the water. I know. Some people may be confused. Okay, there's smoke on the horizon. There's no fire in the sky.
No fire in the sky. Okay. But, you go back to Mount Baromaces, and it's wrecked. Like, there's all this sad shit music going on. It's super depressing.
You know what I realized?
What's that?
Or I thought I noticed. I think it was the same tune that they play in FF8 during, like, the sad crap.
Maybe.
I felt like the music in the background, I think they took it out of the FF8 soundtrack, or at least a very similar soundtrack.
I felt the same way. I felt like there was a song in there. I don't remember which one it was.
I didn't check.
It might be that one, but I feel like there was a song that I was like, this is the same as another song.
Yeah.
Another FF thing.
All right. Well,
It might have been the sad music in FF11 also.
It could have been.
Yeah.
Anyway, you go back there and you find that the Grand Kiltius has been murdered. A bunch of judges came in. There was Gabranth. There was Bergen, who stayed there and killed him. And then there was another guy who we don't care about right now. And Bergen stays behind, and he attacks you. And you fight him, and you kill him, and he explodes because he's got nethicite in his body, and it just like ejects. So he just dies a hellish death, I'm sure. But before this, we do see the cutscene of Vane's father, of the Lord of House Solidor, is just executed. He's dead in his chambers, and the Senate at this point had been starting to fear Vane Solidor.
I remember there was some things having to do with the judges.
Yeah, right here. This is where, they come in, and Vane's got this bullshit story of the leader of the Senate killing the king and then poisoning himself. And then this is where the judges kind of take sides. So there's Judge Zecht, who is kind of neutral, and he's like, he's the smart one, really, where he's like, we just need... we need a leader right now because we're in a war, so let's just go with Vane because he's right here. We don't want to get Larsa. He's not even here right now. We don't know what's going on with him. And then there's Judge Gabranth, who kind of just goes along with that too. And he was set to spy on Vane. It was one of his duties, was to kind of see what Vane was up to. Mm-hmm. And of course, Judge Gabranth is Bosch's twin brother that we discussed. And they totally know that by now. Yeah, but and then also there's Judge. What is that chick's name? You remember what her name was?
I don't remember what her name was, but that scene was awesome when she went up against him and then she dies.
Yeah, that judge, she calls Vane out
valiantly, and then she died.
Calls Vane out and basically says that it was him that killed him and that she doesn't believe his bullshit. And the super psycho Judge Bergen, who was also there before he went to the other area, obviously, to kill the Grand Kiltius, freaked out, flipped her on her back, was like a superhuman because he had all the nethicite. And then Vane has Gabranth kill her to prove his loyalty. And so he does, so he doesn't get killed. And then we go to... That's when we see the smoke on the horizon, I believe. Okay. It's because right after that, they just launched an attack and killed the Grand Kiltius after you get the treasure, which, of course, is the weird scene where we kind of see what's his name, Lord Rossler again in ghost form, kind of guiding Ash.
Right, I remember. Yeah, that was really weird.
And then Vaughn sees him.
Right.
Yeah.
Vaughn sees him as well, and
he disappears.
Right.
Was it Vana?
No,
it wasn't Vana.
Vana's later. I think the reason why Vaughn could see him that time was because they had some connection, but Vana was the one that he couldn't see him ever when it was Vana. So
Okay.
anyway, and you go back and everybody's dead, and Larsa's devastated. Obviously, you just found out his father's been killed by Al Cid, the super swag Russian man,
Yes.
who's part of another empire, and they're basically trying to avoid war, so they're trying to, maneuver their troops.
They're doing some,
sort of
little things behind the scenes,
Yeah, they're trying to stop it. They're trying to get
assassination here, assassination there.
yeah,
While trying to appear neutral.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Andor is doing. He's doing he's really not neutral anymore. But yeah, and
Well, don't listen to Andor's lies. That's what I say.
yeah, no kidding. Man. Well, what happens next?
Well, somehow we get to the Sword of Kings and the Still Shrine of Miriam.
Yeah, that's weird. He mentioned that. Though.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, that was the Dynast King's treasure, and then we go back to the city after
Yeah, and
getting
then the
Dynast
Sword of Kings is meant to
I'm all over
be
the
able to
place.
destroy the Nethicite.
right. And
The one thing that can do it.
also, there's a really interesting battle in there that we didn't mention. The Venuskar guy. Do you remember that guy? The guy that made you super, super slow if you had metal armor on? Oh. That guy was a pain. I mean, he was a pain.
I
the
do
first
remember
time.
that. I think I just kept my armor on, though.
Yeah, and just took the slow.
Yeah, I just took the slow.
All right, that works. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So from there, I mean, essentially they want to, get into the Empire. They want to sneak up on them, find out what's going on in Draklor, which is a place where you find out Balthir's father is actually the head of the laboratory. The laboratory.
Yes.
And
That was a really weird
Dr.
twist.
Sid. Yeah?
Yeah, the whole Balthier Sid thing.
I guess. I don't know.
He's my father. I don't know. It didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Felt contrived.
Yeah, I felt like it was fine. But anyway, he knows how to get in, so...
That's got to be one of my favorite Sids now, though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome.
Dr.
He
Sid?
is sweet. I mean, he's a terrible human being, but he's awesome in a certain kind of I don't know, I don't know. He's just got swag.
I think
Yeah.
the Al Cid guy was supposed to be the
They're both really
the
awesome.
Cid. of-
True, yeah.
Are you sure, though? I'm pretty
know.
sure it's Dr. Sid.
Dr. Sid, I think, is the real Sid, but because he's the one that builds airships, he does all that stuff, and that's a classic Sid trope, is
Yeah.
to be the airship guy. And yeah, so I mean, you're kind of on Arcades' doorstep at this point. You're trying to sneak in.
There's a lot of walking up to Arcades through a few different areas.
You go through the Fawn Coast. You go through
Sochin Cave.
Sochin Cave Palace, which kind of some rough stuff happens in there. I had a game over after an hour of maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes of grinding up to the Sochin Cave Palace, and then the Mandragoras killed me. No, the Mandragoras did a killing blow, but I lived, and then the fucking crystal bug thing killed me. It was
crystal
horrible.
bugs.
I was so close to dead, and then I just fought it. I didn't realize it was there. Anyway, then you get into Old Arcades, which is the rundown shithole version of the town.
Your whole point is to try to get into the regular Arcades?
Right, yeah.
New Arcades.
Right, so you do a few things. You stage some events, distract some guards with a buddy of Balthir's, and
then suddenly, throughout the game, you can go in and out as you please
right,
without having to distract anyone.
right.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you do get chops while you're there, too, which are like a status symbol that people have, and that's a really annoying
That guy's
quest.
got chops.
Yeah. I mean, I
Fine
approve,
chops.
but no, the chop quests, they were rough. I hated it when I first got there. I was like, Jesus, I forgot about this fucking part. Basically, you get a little story that someone tells you, and then you have to remember
Match them
that
up
story.
with the other person.
Right, and match it up to the second person that you can relate that story to. And you have to do that, I think it's 12 times, something like that, to get into the next area. Anyway, once you do that god-awful side quest, you get into Arcades, let's see, what do you do there? Oh, that's right, you meet up with Dr. Sid.
Yeah, Dr. Sid, like we were talking about.
Yeah, you get into their area, fight a bunch of dudes. There's a bunch of dead dudes too, which is super weird. And then we finally meet Dr. Sid.
Yep. Do you remember? Is this when Vana is introduced to us, when he starts popping up behind people's backs? I mean, it might have been earlier, but is this when Balthier explains who he is, or?
Well, this is where Balthier figures out who he is.
Oh, okay.
He didn't know. He just knew that he was crazy. And
So who is Vana?
Vana is one of the Akurian, which are the gods of Final Fantasy XII. And essentially, Vana's mission is kind of cool, actually. It makes him he's a weird character. He wants the gods to no longer be in control of the events of humans. So he's essentially he led Dr. Sid to discover and use and manufacture nethicite
Right.
for war.
Taught him how to use it. Taught him all he knows.
Yeah,
The
pretty
Dr.
much.
Sid.
Yeah, and so this
He's
is where
giving out degrees.
yeah, this is where he finally pops out, and you also meet up with Redis, which is another sky pirate guy who we will talk about a little more later, and he fights all the way up to Sid, and I don't think he fights him, but
Sid gets away.
yeah, Sid gets away, and he basically says, "Hey, I'm gonna go to Garuva again. You should come with me." And then
I'm going to show you some stuff.
yeah,
Let's party there.
I do remember going to Gruvegen through the Feywood.
Right.
That was difficult. That was difficult shit.
the Feywood was pretty tough. Not nearly as bad as Guruvegan though. But when I got into Guruvegan,
but, I've got some stuff about Gruvegen.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you didn't-
Gruvegen wasn't tough after all.
Yeah,
Just tell you that.
Well, it wasn't tough when you had Blizzaga either. It did like 6,000 to those behemoths.
Maybe someone told me not to buy spells anymore, and I was worried about buying equipment, and then that screwed me over. So
didn't.
it's like,
I was able to buy both. I don't know what's going on.
Me too.
well, maybe I had wasted a shit ton of money beforehand.
On something. I don't know. You gambled it away, I guess. Anyway, so
Slot machines.
right.
Potions.
Yeah. It's like FF1, just potions. So anyway, you go through the Feywood, which is a super misty area. There's lots of mist. This is a nice callback to 9 with the mist, I think, because it's like a huge magical element.
Yeah, they do use
I
mist
felt like
in
it
9.
related to it.
Forgot
Yeah.
about that. There's a whole big shit in 9 with the mist.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Feywood is the area where it's like you have to go. The mist is so thick you can't really see that far in the game.
Yeah.
And there's this giant puzzle about you going underneath these structures, and then the structures have multiple openings, and you have to you have to turn the camera until it looks like another image, and then you walk that way into another structure.
Right.
And you have to keep doing this until you get to the door.
Right.
And it's kind of big and complicated, and there's all these behemoths surrounding the structures, and it's just
And they're
rough.
pretty rough. Yeah, they do a lot of damage at this point in the game. And I think this is about where Joe started catching up to me in time, was around here. You started being about the same amount of time as me. And actually, you were a little faster because of my even leveling. So this is where you did catch up because you had one party. So the single party system is useful for sure, but
Gets things done.
it does. So yeah, and after this, I mean, you got to do that for a couple different areas, and then you find the giant door, which of course you unlock with Belias. It's called I can't remember what the door's name is, but essentially whatever Belias is the name of the door. And-
Gygus?
Yeah, Gygus
Gigas.
door. Yeah, or Gigas. And you summon
Gygus.
him. You summon him, and he opens the door for you in a cool fashion, and then you're in Guruvegan.
Yeah.
An awesomely
I do remember being a little confused at that door.
yeah.
That was. I can't remember if I figured it out or if someone told me how to get through it.
I don't know.
I don't know what I would have done the first time I played this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got to get into Guruvegan and get to the Great Crystal
Right, which
believe
Guruvegan is.
within Guruvegan.
I remember it being a difficult puzzle area, but it really isn't. There's like a few doors you have to unlock.
There's 2 switches
Yeah.
that you have to unlock in Guruvegan, unless you want some hidden treasure, in which case there's like 4 switches.
right.
But it's not really that makes Guruvegan difficult.
No.
It's almost like the moon in Final Fantasy IV. Maybe not as bad as that, but there is a serious level up as far as like the the difficulty of the random enemies in that area are sick compared to the previous areas, even the Feywood. Like, there's a good jump there.
Yeah, it's all like behemoths and then like Marlboros that
I did attempt to level up
give
there.
you disease and stuff.
It was a good place to level up.
I did attempt to level up there, and then I decided to do a Google search about good places to level up in FF12.
Right.
Now,
Which led into...
this led into me finishing the game quite quickly as far as real game time is concerned. As far as me sitting in front of the TV game time is concerned. I was having so much difficulty in Gruvagen. I accepted this very beautiful way of leveling up without any sort of effort. I decided to take a teleportation crystal back to where was that place?
Still Shrine of Miriam.
The Still Shrine of Miriam. And there's a certain rare game in the Still Shrine of Miriam. You have to be in one of the rooms for 30 minutes. You have to clear out the room. You leave. You wait for 30 minutes. Just leave the room, not leave the area. Then you go back in, and this guy will appear. And it's basically the same trick that I used in Final Fantasy IV. If you listen to the Final Fantasy IV review episode, I get some hate on that. The guy will continuously summon people if he is not killed.
Right.
Right. And they're pretty low level. And so if you set your gambits so that you'll only attack guys with less than 1,000 HP, and then some other specific gambits that have all been laid out on the internet.
Right. We've got that, and I've got a video for it too.
As far as how to how to just keep going without, your main character dying, so that there's no pause in the video whatsoever.
Right.
You get the double XP item on you. You just keep leveling up. You just stand there, and your guys will just keep killing his spawns and not kill him.
Right, and you have decoy auto casting on the other party members, so that the main party person never dies.
And then if the main party person does get like stone or whatever the heck it is that is cast on them,
right,
they will then cast a remedy.
Right.
So you got to have like 100 remedies going in, but they hardly use them. They use them like once every like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you can seriously level up to like 99 just as long as you got like 100 smelling salts and remedies on you.
Right, and I mean it takes forever. Obviously, what did you do that for? Like,
okay, so I got to Guru Vagan at the 38-hour mark.
Okay,
and I leveled up 3 of my guys to the early 90s and the other 3 up to the mid 70s. At 107 hours, I came back.
Oh, wow.
And continued the game. So it's going to add a lot of length to your game time if you decide to do that. But going through Guru Vagan was a piece of cake after that.
Right.
I would say. How did you guys get through Guru Vagan? Because for me, it was just disgusting.
I just went.
Before I did that.
Yeah, me too. Then
you guys had no problems whatsoever?
No, I had no problems. But then again, I was like 10 levels over leveled for like every area. So
that's true. I remember you saying that you were just like, "Oh, I'm having so much fun playing the game. I'm just gonna do this.
It was fun,
and I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna go out and level up just a little bit here and a little bit there, and I'm just having so much fun." I realize you don't sound like that at all, but that's the attitude that you had, and I didn't understand it whatsoever. Because this game was a serious grind up to that point for me.
Well, this game is one of the few games where it's actually fun to grind in. And since there's like 2 ways essentially to level up with the license points and then actually leveling up, it was pretty easy.
Yeah, by the time I got there, I had gotten all of the health and damage licenses.
Same with me. And then I had the swiftness ones too that decreased the amount of time between attacks.
Right, and I had Blizzaga, which does almost all or about half their life each hit. So I dealt with this area like a boss and just came in and screwed it over. I think this might have been one of the areas. No, never mind, it wasn't. So anyway, once you fight your way through Guru Vagan, then we come to the part where you pretty much are going to want to use a guide. The Great Crystal The Great Crystal is a fuck of an area. It's really cool looking, as are most areas in the game.
It is. The game has some cool design.
But it's very difficult if you're not going the right way. And you can run into some heavy shit down there.
It's actually worse than, if you guys remember in Final Fantasy VIII, the Tomb of the Unknown King.
Yes.
I hate that place.
It's like they looked at Final Fantasy VIII when they were making Final Fantasy XII, and they were like, yeah, Tomb of the Unknown King without a guide or without the map thing, or if you just have difficulty with spatial intelligence as to where you are based upon what direction you're looking in. It's almost like they thought, now how can we make an area just like that but worse for Final Fantasy XII? And so they came up with the Great Crystal. No map and a big fuck you scheme, I'd say, to the layout of that bullshit.
Yeah, it was rough. And you can unlock some serious shit in there. There's some hard level areas. So definitely use a guide.
There's some extra stuff in there that we can talk about.
Yes. And of course, once you get out, you fight a summon, which is cool. The Shemhazai or Shemhazal, whatever his name is. Also, there's a bird-like dude that, of course, you didn't have any problems with because you were in the 90s, but he was rough. He was a tough fucker when I went through. This guy was like right as you go into the Great Crystal. What's his name? Daedalus. No, not Daedalus. Daedalus was the dude on the... Tyrant, yeah. That guy was sick for me.
Oh, that guy was super easy.
Yeah, well, you guys were fucks. But you get out of the Great Crystal, you do some switches in there, as always, and you come out the other end, and you fight Shemhazal, and then you realize that, Dr. Sid was just pulling your chain and wanted you to come through and basically do the work. Mm-hmm. And you're both ears like typical, god damn it, and kind of pissed off. So then you go back to, you get out and you go to Balfenheim, and this is where you meet one of the really cool side characters. I think he's awesome.
You talk to the gods in the Great Crystal?
Oh yeah, there's that cutscene with the gods,
and then you get the treaty blade.
I believe they do give you the treaty blade,
Yeah, the other sword that is able to destroy the Magicite.
That's what you were in there for, yeah. So you have like a weird meeting with the Okuria, and they're basically like, use the Nethicite, blow shit up, do it. And for some reason they're like, oh, here's the sword to cut it into more pieces so you can blow more shit up. That was their idea. So they give that to you, and then Sid, of course, wanted that to happen. He didn't want to do it himself, so you did it for him. And then you go seek out Redis in Balfenheim. And this is actually the judge that brought in the Nethicite to the town that we saw laid waste to in the very beginning. Nabudis, that was his role. He was the judge that destroyed the town, and he was like, all right, well, I'm done. I'm out of this place. They just assumed he was dead. He's not. He's awesome. He has sweet chops. And you team up with him, and you come up with the plan. You're like, well... we were supposed to seek the Sun Crest atop an overlook on the sea.
Yeah, there's some kind of vague description, but of course the game leads you right to.
Right. Redis is like, oh, I know what it's talking about. It's talking about this hellish area that is hated. I might hate this area. I don't think
he said that.
No, he didn't. I might hate this area more than the Great Crystal.
I do not.
I think it brings me more anxiety than the Great Crystal does, because I'm like, Jesus, there's nothing. But, it's okay.
I disagree with you on this.
Yeah. Great Crystal was pretty brutal.
Great Crystal is sick. This, if you got a map, you can at least get out of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I hate them both. I fucking hate it. But, you get in here and you ascend. Now, the ascension process for this is a long walk with some very confusing things as far as like switches and teleporters to take, which lead back to basically... To unlock different areas of this place, you had to give up a certain ability. So, like, you give up your item, you give up your magic, and then you can continue on. And that, whatever you gave up, corresponds with what waystone you use. And if you don't get the right one, the game decides to fist you by throwing you in.
I used a guide through this whole section.
Well, the guide will help, but it really depends on what you choose.
Well, that's true, but
the guide will tell you which one.
The guide told me which color to go to.
I just wrote down which ones were right, and just level grinded while I was in the hellish area, which was not a bad idea, like, because it throws you basically when you fuck up. It gives you 2 chances. The first time you fuck up, it backs you up. The second time you fuck up, it throws you in this room with the locked doors. You can't get out, and there's undead dudes just coming out of the fucking woodwork, right? So you kill the hell out of those guys. You get out. You got to go back in, do all that crap again, and then finally you start ascending into this area.
This is a huge section of the game.
This is a pretty big area. There's a lot of boss fights. There's like 5 or 6 of them, including a summon. You finally get up to a really high floor.
There's 3 different ascents. We should say that. And I remember the second ascent. Was that the one where you had to kill the big-headed guys and then it would like open up a piece of bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that was annoying.
Yeah, that one was pretty annoying for the last part, at least.
Yeah, it was all right.
It was annoying. It was not Great Crystal annoying, though.
No.
I found out that if you don't kill dudes fast enough, they start disappearing.
Well,
and
if you kill,
that was a pain in the
if you
dick.
kill the wrong ones, things will disappear. Because there's the green ones that you have to kill.
Yeah.
If you kill a red one, it gets rid of the whatever you just gained.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, did you not know that?
No, I just killed everything.
Wow, so you were just okay.
There's enough of them that you
You're
just
like, there's
walk
not
up.
enough. I guess I'll walk back and kill another green thing. All right.
I don't even know if the red ones were spawning for me.
Oh, they were. I promise you.
Yeah,
I walked,
they were there.
I walked
They were
through it just fine.
Yeah, whatever.
Anyway, so yeah, you get a new summon, and then you get an awesome chain of events that happens. So you get to the top, and Dr. Sid is there, of course. He's like, yeah, you brought the shit. And he's super pumped. He's got the nethicite. He's got more of it.
I don't even know how to. It's. I felt like Robin Williams was voicing Dr. Sid, but because of that kind of like pitter patter kind of speech, you know.
Yeah.
It was awesome, but he wasn't. But whoever did the voice acting of Dr. Sid, way to go.
Right, so you get up there, and Judge Gabranth is waiting for you as well. So, you fight Gabranth, you defeat him, and then you fight Dr. Sid, who's got this giant-ass, revolver minigun looking thing that's amazing. And he's just this zany dude, and you also fight Famfrit.
It's 2 summons.
Yeah, so another summon in the area. And I personally, through the guidance of others that were watching me play, they were like 1-on-1. So I threw everybody out of the party, killed Redis off, and fought Gabranth with just Bosch.
Did that change the game in any way?
No. There's extra dialogue.
You just felt like, it was time, brother against brother.
Yeah, there is extra dialogue in the final battle. And there might have been extra dialogue in that one too. I don't remember. But then after that, I pulled out freaking Balthier for Sid. It was sweet. And then Famfrit came out, and I was like, I'm going to kill him. So I just brought everyone out. And then this is where Redis finally makes amends for his crime against humanity and goes in and he destroys the Suncrest because Ash decides we're not going to take this path. We're not going to take the path of total destruction because total destruction is evil, and she didn't want to do it. So
Yeah, this whole time she was seeking power, and then she decided to turn it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. What the heck noise are you making?
I don't know.
Do you keep hitting the thing?
Maybe.
Okay,
Try
stop.
Not to.
Stop.
yeah, it's really annoying.
It's like, all right. So, then something about the Bahamut, right? The big ship.
Right. This is where
This is like the thing. The bad guys suddenly pull out of their ass, I'd say.
yeah.
Yeah, the Bahamut.
So it's basically their mega ship, their ultimate force to be reckoned with.
And they're gonna lay down some death and destruction with the Bahamut.
Right.
But you are gonna stop them.
Of course. But first, and before I kill off Redis, I will go do 43 hunts or so with him and my party.
Oh God!
Yeah.
I bet you did too. Oh
did.
Yeah. We both did.
Yeah.
That's right. It felt more recent for me, though.
Well, that's 'cause
I didn't
it
have to do
was.
as much stuff.
But yeah, so
Then you
this
go up,
is-
you kill. No, you don't kill. You go up and you fight Gabranth.
Right, you defeat Gabranth again. Gabranth. Well, before this, though, I mean,
Am I skipping sections? What am I skipping?
well, there's the scene with Larsa and Vayne where Vayne is like, "Well, let's fuck him, let's crush him here."
Let's fuck them. That's
Yeah,
what Vayne says.
basically. And and Larsa's like, "Well, no, if you do that, they're just going to rise up again later." And he's like, "No, if we don't do that, that's what they're going to do. And then he's like, no, you're wrong. I hate you.
And if I'm wrong, you should correct me or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and then Vane is like, well, bring it on. You know, if you think you can do it. And then essentially...
Bring it on, little bro.
Yeah. Then you get into the ship and you fight Gabranth, who is like torn. Because, you know, his main homeland is destroyed. Like Nabudis, isn't that where they're from?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that's gone. And then his other, you know, Bosch's other area, Rabanastre, he betrayed, quote unquote. And so there's this huge storyline between the two brothers where they're both kind of honor bound, but Gabranth he's conflicted because he knows he's on the wrong side, but he wants to protect Lord Larsa because he's a good kid, wants to keep him alive and all. So he's just like freaking out at Bosch. He's like, come on, how do you let all this stuff happen to you and yet you still retain your honor? Like, I can't do that. And you did. And he's like, well, it's because of Ash. It's because I found something worth fighting for. So then you fight. You mess him up again, and then...
Yeah, you think he's dead.
Yeah, you think he's gone. He's just kind of down. No, actually, you don't think he's dead there. He's like, just lay down your arms or something like that. No, Bosch talks to him after that.
Well, he was like in his arms, and it seemed like he was done. And then you have to go up the lift, and then you go...
Yeah, you go up the lift, and then you find Vane.
You gotta go fight some Vane.
And then Larsa, of course, betrays his brother because he hates him because he's evil. You fight the first form of Vane. I don't think he hates his brother. Well, he doesn't hate him, I guess.
He just knows that he needs to be stopped.
He does not approve.
The kingdoms.
Right, so they fight, and Larsa joins your party. Larsa gets messed up after this fight, and then Gabranth comes up, and he's like, oh, freaking out because he's, you know, looking after Larsa. And Gabranth joins in the fight against phase 2 of Vane. And then phase 2 of Vane really lays the death down on Gabranth. He like has these floating sword thingies around him. And after the fight, he launches them all into Gabranth, who is still alive after that. He's a freak. And
I do remember Larsa stopping it with some kind of nethicite.
Oh yeah, that's right. He does stop that,
the magicite that absorbed the blow, but he still got like knocked out.
Yeah, you're right. No, he was just dying from the thing before, I think. Mm-hmm. I think he hits him. Yeah, he hits him, and then he tries to kill him with the sword things. Never mind.
And then Gabranth blocks it and saves him, and then he joins your party for the fight.
Yeah, sure.
Then Gabranth dies.
Well, no, he's not dead yet. But yeah, anyway, whatever. There's awesome stuff that happens. I mean, there's a lot of... I don't know, like a lot of final moments, and yet he's still alive for a little longer, which is super weird.
Right, and then Vane kind of goes insane. I don't know what...
Yeah, Vane is like super mad and just gets...
Is he like swelled by the mist or something like that?
I don't know.
One of the gods like fuses with him.
Well, that's after. That's the final fight. Yeah, he goes crazy before then, though. He like turns into the Hound.
Yeah, he has like
a fucked up face, and
he uses the nethicite to become more powerful. I think is what happens.
All right, something happens and he ascends, essentially, and that's when he fighted the second form. And then after that, he kind of just, like, takes off. I mean, Vaughn punches him up and, you know, starts beating his ass. And then Vana, the god, appears in front of him and cuts him off. And then there's a little conversation between Vana and Vane where he's like, oh, I failed you. And then he's like, no, you did a great job.
No,
you did way more than I thought.
He did exactly what I thought, yeah.
Right, he did exactly what he wanted him to. Then he fuses with Vane, and Vane just gets, like, sick power... And this awesome cutscene where there's just mist slamming out of him.
He's just destroying shit around him.
Right. There's like an airship that just gets completely destroyed.
Yeah, and then like all the broken pieces just like fusing with him to like form wings and armor and shit.
And he's a pretty awesome looking end boss.
It's pretty crazy.
Like really cool looking.
Yeah.
And so you fight him. And of course, you defeat him. And, you know, it seems like it's going great. You're like, all right, awesome. Well, we got rid of him. And then
something's malfunctioning with the ship.
Yeah, the Bahamut ship it's like breaking down. So the rings around the outside stop moving, and it starts to drop, lose altitude, and it's going to slam into Rabanastre because that's where this battle's been taking place. So, you know, one of the judges is like, "Oh, we're going to ram the ship like a fool," and then Balthier is like, "No, we'll get in there and we'll try to repair it," and then. You know, you go onto the ship, and then Balthier and them they're fixing it up.
Right.
And then, of course, there's a scene where Ash is like super mad at Balthier because he's in the destruction of the ship. He's in the Bahamut.
Right, Balthier leaves Balthier and Fran go to fix whatever's wrong with the Bahamut.
Right.
And then he leaves Vaughn in charge of the ship. So Vaughn flies off and then watches what's happening with the Bahamut, and it keeps like falling.
Right.
And it cuts inside to Balthier, and they're all having conversation over radio on what Balthier is doing. You know,
Right.
he shouldn't be in there. And
There's some awesome
shit
dialogue.
is like crashing around, but Balthier, you know, he stops it at the last moment.
Right.
I know that.
Yeah, and then there's I don't know, that's like one of my favorite pieces of dialogue from the game, is where he's talking about how the leading man never dies.
Right.
And then after that, he looks over and Fran is just like knocked unconscious, and he's like, do I have to do everything? Then he goes and like fixes that part, picks her up, and then she tells him he's more of a like supporting role.
Yeah.
And that part just made me laugh. He's like, Fran, please. And then he just like walks, and then the ship just crashes into the ground.
So you think he might be dead?
Yeah, the first time I played it, I was like, what the hell, man? No, come on. Can't be dead.
Yeah.
And then you get this weird flashback where Penelo's wearing like balloon pants.
It's not a flashback, it's a flash forward.
forward,
it's,
yeah, sorry.
It's an
It's like-
epilogue.
yeah, it's like 2 years or a year after.
Yeah. And Penelo's talking about how things have changed. Ash is, of course, royalty again.
Right. It essentially ends the same way 9 ends, where it's like, well, they don't talk to us anymore because they're important, but, you know.
And now we're pirates. So
Right.
Yeah, Vaughn got his own
Probably
ship.
shouldn't be friends with the
With the royalty.
royalty.
Yeah, so Vaughn gets his, he finally gets his pirate ship, and with all the millions and millions of gil that I earned him, and of course, Bosch has like a final moment with Gabranth while all of this destruction is going on. We did mention, you know, kind of comes to terms with his brother. They kind of accept each other. He's like, look after Lord Larsa. He's like getting assurance that Lord Larsa is going to be a good leader, and then he dies. And then, of course, Bosch takes over his brother's position as, you know, judge magistrate and Larsa's protector. So he goes back.
Everybody gets letters from Balthier or someone.
Right. And the ship, the Strahl, is taken back, and it's pretty much, you know, alluded to the fact that Balthier is obviously alive. And, yeah, let's see.
That's the story.
Yeah, that's essentially the story.
That's essentially the story. It took us an hour to get through the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's a lot of cool side stuff, too. I mean, with certain characters, but we won't go into too much detail with that for side quests. But
So, I mean, just based upon how hard it was to remember some parts of the story, obviously, to me at least, the story did not make much of an impact. I gotta say. I don't know precisely why. It didn't seem to make much of a emotional impact, any sort of connection with me. But it just didn't. It didn't vibe with me. I don't know. How did you guys feel about the story as a whole? And I don't know, Caleb?
You're right. There wasn't much emotional connection, probably because it was centered around Vaughn and Penelo, who really are not part of it in any way.
Yeah, they're just
aside
kinda
from just
there.
like bumbling along. But the main characters who even have any connection to anything are really like Balthier and then
Ash and Bosch.
and Ash and Bosch. But they get stuff, but it's not a lot. Like there's the moment with Bosch and his brother, and then like how Sid hates his dad and everything, but like that's nothing really comes out of that. And then Ash
Balthier hates
Sid.
Yeah.
And then everything with like Ash and Rossler, whatever his name is, just it doesn't really strike anything either. I mean.
So you felt that it kind of was the story kind of flat to you?
It kind of was, yeah, because they focused so much on Vaughn and Penelo, they didn't put a whole lot of backstory into Ash, even though like everything.
Oh, I
they
think
like
there's
tried
plenty.
to.
I think there's plenty of backstory on
there's
those
stuff
guys.
there's stuff with Ash, but it's like all in like mostly in the beginning cutscene, where everything just kind of like happens. You see that she like gets married to him, and then all of a sudden everything's dead. Like you don't like go into her story. it just is explained to you that it happened. And so like everything that happens with Wrestler is like not like how she believes that it's him telling her what to do. Like it doesn't really feel like it matters.
Schweiss, how did you feel about the story?
I don't know. I kind of feel like it, and I know we ranked 9 very high. I kind of feel like it has the same syndrome that 9 has, where, you know, I liked it while I was playing it, but then afterwards I don't really remember that much because it's not very
So it didn't make
memorable.
that much of an impact, is that
Not
what you're
really,
saying?
no. I mean, I think the side stuff with the supporting cast is really good.
Yeah. If
And-
Bosch were the main character,
This game would be quite a bit better.
yeah.
Yeah.
This
I think
game would
so.
be the story would have much more of an impact.
Right. I mean, it would have started out with him getting captured and Vaughn would
Right.
have just never been part of the thing. I think I would have preferred that. Not that I hate Vaughn necessarily. It's just, they're just kind of husks of a character. They don't really have any
It would
meat.
have felt like more of an emotional story.
Right.
What I noticed, and I told you this, but I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast yet. I was near the end of FF12, and I kind of had this epiphany about how 10 told its story versus how 12 tells its story. And what 10 does, it's not just about backstory or anything like that, but what Final Fantasy X did with the characters and how it kind of made you care about the characters was that it had like an entire section, or it would section off certain spots where Titus would interact with one character specifically.
Yeah.
And so you got to know that character specifically. There is not very much time given to Ash or to Bosch or to Balthier. There's not, even though they have these incredible backstories, I'd say, all this great plot behind them, you don't really get to know them, and you don't really get to personalize them, characterize them.
Right. They're almost characters kind of a thing. Just because they're...
like their story and that's it. It's like they focused on story and maybe not on character. Not that they don't have character, but you don't get to experience very much of it.
Right. And I mean, 12, I don't think has a really annoying main character like most of the other ones
No,
do. But I do think they're all kind of just flat.
Vaughn is not nearly. He's not very. No, he's not annoying.
He's not Titus annoying. Now, Titus does become awesome near the end of 10, which we do talk about. But Vaughn is way less annoying throughout the entirety of it.
Yeah.
But way less awesome at the end, too. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, Vaughn is a
stays
nothing.
like the same too.
Pinello's a nothing.
Right. They don't really change either.
Balthier
Yeah.
is a cool personality. And Ash has an interesting story, but she's so internal with her struggles.
Yeah.
We don't get to see very much of that. And then the character that we probably do have the most emotional attachment with, Bosch, does not get enough screen time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've always liked Bosch. I thought he was an awesome character.
Yeah.
Because of that, but the game just is like, he's there.
So I have a feeling that a lot of this had to do with their decision to change the main character, which I believe was the wrong decision.
Yeah, I think so too. The demographics, a lot of the people that were playing around the days of 12 were playing from the original games. So I kind of call bullshit on that because
Yeah,
the audience is usually kind of older for Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
I know they're
I
trying to
would've
target
cared.
16, 17-year-old with their teen rated games, but I think it would have been just fine.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I've played many games as a teenager with adult main characters. Like, I don't understand why they think that it needs to be some annoying ass kid. I mean, I played Resident Evil 4 around the same time as I played this.
I think it's because it's an RPG that they thought if younger people were going to play it, they wanted to have like a younger
relatable-
main character. Yeah,
Did
to,
you
like,
ever
relate
feel that
and
way?
Pretend that you are them.
Did you ever feel that way, though?
No, but then again, we're in our 20s.
No. When I was a kid, and I'm thinking like 4th or 5th grade, so what was I, like 9 and 10 years old? I watched real movies. I didn't watch cartoons. Like, I had grown out of cartoons by then. So I wasn't, like, when I was like 16, I wasn't looking, oh, where's the 16-year-old in this game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? My favorite movie when I was a little kid was Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that was mine too.
That has adults as the main character. Believe me, I didn't think that Tim was this great kid that I was
Nobody cares about Tim.
through the narrative. And in fact, movies that centered on kids, I think I hated more. Like, I like E.T. a lot more now than I did as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't think that. I think there are adults in the creative industry, like making movies and making video games, that may think that way, but I don't think the kids actually do think that way.
Yeah, I don't either.
At least I didn't, and I don't think any of my friends growing up were like, gee, I wish there was a little kid part in this for me.
Yeah.
I don't
know,
think
it's
so,
weird.
because I always felt like, the more mature stuff was, I felt more mature watching it. Like it was kind of a, it was kind of a cool thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that way too. I
mean, watching your first rated R movie, I don't know how you felt during that, but when I watched my first rated R movie was Alien.
Yeah.
And I just felt like a big boy after that. Like,
I can't remember what my first rated R movie was.
I was like 11 or something.
I think mine might have been RoboCop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know The Ring was one of the first ones.
No, I don't feel. I think Square is completely wrong about the whole, relating. You relate to characters that are good, fleshed out characters, despite their gender, despite their age.
Right. It shouldn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
So I think Bosch would have been a fantastic main character, and Balthier as the secondary.
He would have, at the very least, been a more interesting main character.
Oh, yeah. I think he's a lot cooler.
So the plot, I believe, in Final Fantasy XII is a good plot, and there are certainly strong moments. I believe the opening, although it is a crap ton of exposition, a beautiful opening with some really interesting stuff in it. And, of course, the last section of the game when Dr. Sid becomes kind of a presence, I believe that there were some very strong cutscenes that I was really interested in. But before then, it was just like nothing for me as far as the story was concerned. Yeah, it was a lot of walking to get certain items that turned out to be disappointments later. I don't know. It was like Emperor chasing in Final Fantasy II.
It was similar to that.
Yeah.
Well,
so I just lost my spot, what I was going to talk about.
I don't know. Well, we're still working on the story. Let's see. What else in the story? I want to go over.
I did think that the ending, last hour or so, 2 hours, was really good. When you got to the Bahamut.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
That was excellent.
That stuff was great. So the game, it had all this boring-ass story for the first half of the game. That last 2 hours was really something else. Yeah. When Vane goes bullshit crazy mode and all that other stuff. Now, I do want to say that there might be another disconnect here with some players as far as the storytelling is concerned. The Shakespearean, not Shakespearean, but the kind of archaic language that many of the royalty characters use in the game may be difficult for some people to follow.
Do
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, do you think that's part of why you had a hard time?
I remember one line. It's not that I had a hard time with it. I have a hard time remembering it, but playing it, I was fine with it. I remember one line in particular that made me go, if I was a kid playing this game, would I have gotten that reference? And there was a line where one judge says to another judge, you wear your saddle well.
Yeah.
It's not subtle to me now, but I think it would have been a little bit over my head. I think that line would have been over my head had I been 13 and playing this.
Yeah. So much for their target demographic.
Not that it needed to be a child that said, you wear your saddle well.
Right.
But that line would have probably gone over my head, and I would not have realized the relationship between that character and Vane.
Right.
So, there's little things like that. And it all had to do with that translator guy who decided that, the people on the top needed to speak a certain way.
Right, like royalty.
So I'm saying, this time around, I thought it was really cool what they were doing.
With the language?
Yeah, with the language.
Oh, yeah, I love the language. I mean, does that really count as no, that's not really part of the story.
It's how they were telling it.
Yeah, I suppose. And
Yeah.
there was like it had a similar feel to 10 because a lot of it was past recollection of the Marquis Andor,
Marquise is
Yeah.
how they say it in the game.
which is technically accurate.
We looked it up, and it was like I thought you're supposed to say this word as marquis.
It's
Some kind of royalty figure is a marquis. Turns out it's Marquis in English.
It's
So
both. Yeah, they both work.
They both work.
Yeah, so I
I
mean,
was like,
it's-
this game is wrong, and then I looked it up.
It's kind of like
I was
tactics
wrong.
in that way, where it's kind of told over like a book. There's like a big book, and he's like, well, on the day of the 5th of October, this happened, and then blah, blah, blah.
It would have been of the 10th month or whatever.
Yeah, they'd be all fancy. So I thought the speech was amazing in this game. I there was never a moment where I was playing it and I was like kind of ashamed at what was in front of me. Like with 10, there were a lot of moments with the localization
The localization and the
that
voice
were
acting. Okay.
atrocious. It was so bad in 10. And in 13, I think they went back to that with some of the dumb shit that happens. But 12, they did a great job
I
on.
think we should talk about voice acting right now. I think that it's not only just the language or the use of accents that really colors the world. I think that the voice actors are incredible, and it's so well synced to the game. In comparison to, of course, Final Fantasy X, which was
Right.
the other voice acted mainline Final Fantasy before this. Wow, it's just as good, if not better, than than a native English language game at the time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about maybe Fable or something like that that came before. Like it didn't sync as well, and yet that was a native English game.
Right.
Final Fantasy XII's voice acting and cutscene direction really good.
Yeah, I
Really
agree.
well polished, well done stuff. You're right. There's no super awkward moments where like Titus is like, eh? There's no weird pauses in between certain lines of dialogue. It just flowed so smoothly. in
Yeah,
Final
I think
Fantasy
the only
12.
oddness in 12's voice acting came from the like random characters you would encounter that had like random accents.
Yeah.
That they couldn't stick to one for a group of people.
True.
it was the bunny ladies, I'd say.
And then Magello's was kind of weird, and really all the subspecies were
I felt like
kind of interesting.
I felt
but
like they
didn't-
had their own accents because they were
Yeah.
probably from, different areas, or they had, a strong cultural background
Right.
that gave them those accents.
How'd you feel about the guy who played Magello and that one hunt guy, Gilgamesh? That was kind of cool, huh?
Would you
voice
like
actor.
to explain that to the audience at home?
Well, he's the same voice actor that did, wasn't it Waka?
It's Waka.
Yeah, it's the same guy that did Waka.
And Bender.
And Bender, yeah. So that was awesome. I mean,
Bender from Futurama.
right. So yeah, voice acting, I think
I
is
didn't
worlds.
notice until you told me, and I was doing that Gilgamesh fight, and I was like, oh, that is him.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, you can hear his tone in there.
You can kind of hear it with when Magello talks too, but it's like the very beginning of the game, so you don't hear him too often.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, guys, I don't know. How would you rate? Let's just say a random number here out of 5. No, out of 10. How would you rate this story against the other Final Fantasy stories,
out of 10.
as far as its Final Fantasy XII's storytelling is concerned?
Would that be with 7 as the highest?
It's whatever you think is the highest. My previous ranking had 6 as the highest.
Well, I don't know. Personally, I'd probably put it. I'd put it probably around 9 and 10. Obviously, not as good
No,
as
no,
10s.
no, no. I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about your score out of 10.
Oh, out of 10.
With 1 being 1 and 10 being whichever game you think has the best story, be it 6, 7, or 10 or whatever.
I'd probably put it at like a 6.
Yeah.
I think it has some strong points, but for the most part, not a whole lot happens.
Okay.
But there's some really good character fleshing out eventually. But I think they could have done a lot better job.
At the tail end.
Yeah. What about you, Caleb?
I'd put it above the middle, but not too high up there. So probably about like a 7.
I just said it wasn't out at the games. Is that it?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So
all right.
like a
Like a 7.
7.
All right.
I'm gonna say 5. Yeah, it's middle of the road. There's a couple good parts, of course. The plot is interesting, but it's not well told. I don't think.
Yeah.
No.
All right, fair enough.
It's told from the wrong perspective, if anything.
Yeah, I was. I think I was telling you about how I kind of saw some similarities to the movie of
Star Wars?
no, not Star Wars. It was
Obviously.
Hidden Fortress.
Which took from, or which Star Wars took from.
Well, yeah, what Star
heavily.
Wars took from, but like it was more because it was like the two normal guys just like bump into like the princess and her protector, and they just kind of like go along with their story.
I would say normal. They're fools, actually.
Yeah, they're
in Hidden Fortress.
Idiots, yeah,
But yeah, which by the way, in Star Wars, it was R2D2 and C3PO took place of those characters.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Akira Kurosawa, the movie's called Hidden Fortress, as you said. It's a great film, and George Lucas took the plot,
yeah.
like beat for beat. So.
All right, so not too great on the story.
Not too great on the story. It's kind of a letdown. I mean, it's better than 11's
Well, duh.
by far.
And of course 8, but
Then Final Fantasy 11's. There are going to be a lot of people that disagree with you on that, Caleb.
that's fine.
And there's going to be people that disagree with us on the story of how we feel the story of 12
yeah.
did. Yeah,
Well, that's fine. Not everyone needs to agree.
I guess not. I want everyone to agree because I think my opinion is always the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
Fuck you.
All right. Well, do you think we should move on to gameplay?
We should move on to gameplay, but I do believe that's going to be it for this part of the Final Fantasy XII review. I cannot believe it took us so long to get through story. But tune in next week for you guys listening to the podcast. Tune in next week for when we talk about gameplay and hopefully when we finish off this review. Just remember, guys, you can find us at youtube.com/Ultima Final Fantasy, facebook.com/Ultima Final Fantasy. You can support us on Patreon. We very much appreciate it. Twitch at UFF Podcast. You can go to our website, ultimafinalfantasy.com.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
And of course, check out the other shows we got. We got a nice fitness show, sort of. Where we talk about 10 minutes of losing weight, and then we go off topic, and then super sexy swinging fan fiction.
Yeah, the weight loss show is called Getting Fat with Caleb and
Correct,
Joe.
yes.
PHAT. You can find that in iTunes if you want. Yes, we will be moving on to gameplay. So, Schweiss, we got an outro music here anywhere?
Yeah, god damn it.
All right, for you Twitch users out there, you stay tuned. We're going to continue the gameplay.
Oh, yes.
Ooh, yeah. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, enjoy the listening grind.
This has been another production of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. The show was produced by Joseph DeGollier and Caleb Schweiss, with music and editing by Joseph DeGollier, parodies and clips from their respective authors, of course. You can get all of our episodes as well as our Let's Plays at ultimafinalfantasy.com. You can also contact us on Twitter at UFF Podcast, as well as our contact page on our website. Be sure to subscribe and review our podcast. Your reviews may get read on the show, and look forward to the next episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast.